actually launched our PD series. And I know a number of you were with us at our 1 o'clock session where we did level 1. So this is the Canvas Agreement level 2 session for episode 1. So for those of you who are here live, welcome. For those of you watching at home, welcome as well. Take a look here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Carrie Kunert, and I am pictured there in the center, and I am on the digital curriculum team, and I am a TOSA for the district. And I am joined by my co-host.
My name is Nicole Carter. Like I said, I'm part of the digital curriculum crew, and background is mostly in middle school. Chris will be joining us in a little bit. He had another meeting. He was double booked, but he'll pop in towards the end.
Perfect. I forgot to say that I'm elementary. That's my experience, elementary teacher. Okay, wanted to kind of let you know how this structure is going to work for our session. We're explaining the very beginning part right now, how it's going to be structured. Then we're going to jump into a live demo. And the reason that we're doing that is we're going to be recording this portion so that it can be attached to our Canvas agreements, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then right after, we're going to do this live demo just on the specific topic of modules. So we'll be talking about building in modules and information about modules. And when we finish that up, we will do a Q&A just explicitly on modules to begin with. And the reason we want to limit the questions right there just to modules is so that it is all fitting in that same video topic. Then we will end the recording. And then if we have additional time, we're welcome to answer any other questions that you have about Canvas. It doesn't have to be module related. So after we get that video portion recorded, then it's fair game to ask any other questions that you wanted. Okay, and wanted to describe to you how this series is going to work. We just launched this series today. We broke it into 3 different levels. We have the discovery level on the left here, which is level 1. That's learning Canvas to communicate with students at a basic level, to share assignments and have due dates. And that's probably your first year using Canvas. We're hoping that you have are working at that discovery level. And these all come from our Canvas agreements. And the Canvas agreements are just a backbone and structure for the district to have so that we have common language and that we're working towards similar things. And we can put that link in the chat for you so you can see the Canvas agreements. First year, and we have a whole number of different episodes, almost as if you're watching a TV series or you're binge watching something. So every Wednesday where we have this opportunity, we're going to just work our way through. So we're going to be teaching, we just taught a little bit earlier how to set up user controls in Canvas. So we just taught that at 1 o'clock. So we're going to work our way through there on Wednesdays. And this class that you're in right now is actually level 2, which is the next level up. So after you learn how to use Canvas, then hopefully you're using it to create. So engaging students in various learning tasks, students submitting assignments and providing feedback. Now in a normal slow rollout of Canvas, if we were not doing CDL, we might say, okay, you spend an entire year at the discovery level and just kind of dabble in Canvas. CDL sort of puts everything into fast forward for all of us, right? So chances are you're probably not going to have a whole year to hang out in the discovery level if you are actively using Canvas for CDL with your students. So we are simultaneously introducing level 2 as well for that reason. So this session right here is the first one, episode 1, how to build in modules. And just like level 1, we're going to be doing Wednesday after Wednesday. We're going to proceed through that list of topics. So you are welcome to pop in for the sessions that are applicable to you. You're welcome to skip the sessions that don't. You're welcome to hop up and down levels. Totally fine by us. We are going to be, as soon as we finish level 2, which you can see is a shorter list, then we're going to jump right into level 3. So I believe that starts in January, the level 3 there for episode 1. So all of this is on TeacherSource for you. So you can go register for whichever ones you want, put that in your calendar, and you're welcome to join us. We are recording all of them as well. So on this slide deck and in other places, we will be linking that video. So if you miss one of them, no big deal. You're welcome to come watch any of the video sessions. And we, Nicole, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. We constantly are getting emails about getting PDUs for different sessions. And because the videos that we're going to be doing each Wednesday will likely be 10 to 20 minutes in length, they're going to be a lot shorter. We're not going to be putting up an anytime course until probably mid-January, where you could be watching the entire series of episodes in one go to get the PDUs for that particular course. So if you're with us live, we'll give you PDUs for that, but then otherwise you're going to have to wait a little bit to get the full PDU experience with an Anytime course.
Perfect. All right, so we are at level 2, which is talking all about modules and how to build in modules. So as a reminder, we're going to go ahead and get started. And if you have questions, we will take those at the end.
And the slide deck should really become a great resource for you. There's hyperlinks that link out to the Canvas Commons resources, not Commons, but their resources and support areas. So when we kind of structure it as questions, that's usually because that's how Canvas structures and answers your support questions. So we'll start with why would you build in modules, and then also how to add content into modules. And so I'm just going to open up, I just made a brand new course that had nothing in it so that we can just start building together. And the thing with modules, or why you would build in modules, allows for students to move forward and backward within your content in kind of a linear fashion. And that becomes important when you have students going at different paces. If you're differentiating your content, if you have students that have been absent for any various length of time and they need to catch up, they can move through the content as you see fit. Now, as we talked about previously, where we have level 1, level 2, level 3, a level 3 option is to start looking at setting requirements and rules within modules so that students can self-pace through your course content. Again, that's kind of advanced level material. So we're kind of setting you up to get to that point. And modules is just a good way, I think, for us to think in terms of content planning, backwards design, that sort of stuff. So to create a module, you're just going to go up into the right-hand corner and click on that blue plus sign and title it, thinking about naming conventions and what would work for you. I know I am about to start work on a 7th grade writing unit, so I might title it 7.2 Writing Information. Spell it right. And as you see, you do have this option to lock it. That's again kind of getting into the prerequisite comments and pieces that we're not going to be touching on until like level 3. So I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to say add module. Now, once I have the module ready to go, then I will go to this gray bar here and click on the plus sign. These 3 buttons, it's important to notice, this means that the module itself is not published. And I have talked with quite a few teachers that panic because they want their students to go into content that they've built into a module, but the students can't see it. And oftentimes it's because the module itself hasn't been published. So that would be one thing to look at if you're experiencing some, things going wrong with your students. Make sure your modules are published when you're ready to go. If you're building in a course where you already have students in the roster populated within that course and you don't want them to see what you're building, that would be a reason to keep it unpublished, because once you publish it, the students can see what you're working on. So when you hit the plus sign, you have the ability to kind of navigate through this window, whether you're going to create an assignment, a quiz, a page, etc. We will be going over engagement with each of these pieces in episode 2. There's a lot to think about when you're designing and building in Canvas. One of the first questions I ask, or Chris always likes to say, audience, task, purpose. So if the purpose for my students is that I just need to give them content and I don't need them to turn in anything or participate with their peers, then I might just be building a page. So I might go ahead and say page. And it's going to be a new page. So I click new page and I might then put in my title. So maybe this is teacher information. Then you also have the ability to indent. Now, this doesn't really do anything for the students necessarily, other than just give you visual cues that something might be quite different than the others. I'm going to go ahead and say don't indent on this piece, and then I will just say add item. Now, as I continue to add pieces into this module, they will just float to the bottom and I can move things and adjust them as needed. So I'm hitting the plus sign again, and I'm going to add another page. I want it to be a new page. And instead of teacher information, I'm going to title it unit overview. And I'm not going to indent it again. And I'm just going to add the item because I just want you to see that we're starting to build content. As these things drop down, I can pick it up and move it from the left-hand side to change the linear flow of the module itself. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what type of teacher you might be, teacher A or teacher B. I am the type of teacher that I plan things out. Usually I do use paper pencil, and I'll plan out the contents of my unit and really think about how I might want the students to, I backwards plan. How do I get them to this priority target? And then I go into the module like this and I start building things that have no content in them. They're just an empty shell. But then it allows me to really think through, how are my students navigating through each of these pieces? But you might be a slightly different teacher, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The other piece to go with this one more time, we did talk about publish and unpublish. You can individually publish items so your students can see them. But again, if you don't have the module published, they can't see it unless they go into, for example, pages, then they could find it. But you need to publish and oftentimes it will publish the entire module, but then you can come back and at any point unpublish things as well. So just noticing when you have things that are grayed out versus when you have the green check mark. If you're ever having students come back to you and say, I can't see it, you're telling us to go, you can see it, Mrs. Carter, but I can't, that's the first thing to check and make sure that you have things published. Okay, I'm going to toss it over to Carrie.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and hop into a unit that Nicole and I created for elementary writing. So this is a 5th grade writing unit that we created in Canvas. And just to show you, I know she was showing how to add some of these first pages in here, right? So the information that she's building right here, we want to show you that it can get to be a lot of stuff, right? There's just a lot of content. So you have to really think about how you're going to be able to find the information that you need. So one of the things that you'll notice that we did is we put these little dividers, if you will, right? So we put these little text headers here so that you could see visually sections. So someone jumped into this and said, what on earth, where does this specific writing lesson go? You can see that it is under a specific bend. So the way that we did that, and we kept doing that to try to keep ourselves organized, like, right, here are all the anchor charts, kids. Here are the beginning pages that you're going to need. So up here, just like Nicole did to add a page, you also have the ability, instead of adding an assignment, one of the things you can add is a text header. So you just type in, and I'm just going to add one here, test, and I can choose if I want it to indent or not. And every time you add an item, it always adds it to the bottom. Very dramatic scrolling here to the very bottom. So there is that little header, and I can slide it up and put it in the place, right, that I would want to section out the pages, which I think visually is just super, super helpful, that when you look at it, it can just be, this is only one writing unit, but it's a lot of pages for someone to have to try and figure out where they were picking up if they were looking in this module view. So again, I think those are really nice ways to organize. Another thing that you'll notice that Nicole talked about was indenting. You'll notice that what we decided to do is that we left things, the headers, way on the far left here, almost like a true outline would be, right? So you're in bend 1, beautiful. Okay, this is the very first lesson in this particular writing unit. And the way that we've designated that is we just used a number convention. So we just decided to make it super easy. So we've labeled everything 1-1. So this is the first writing unit of the year. This is the first lesson of the year, right? So the first session. When we call it 1-1, it's really easy. So you can see all the pages that correspond that are with that same unit, right? We could have 3 or 4 pages on here, or assignments or discussions or whatever. But the fact that we have used that number convention, and again, it could be a letter, it could be a word, it could be whatever, it does show that those are connected. So these are for the same lesson. Now 1-2, obviously that's the next day's session. So writing happened to be numbered like that, but you could number your activities or letter them as well. So right here, you'll notice that with this one is not indented. It's on all the way to the far left. You have the ability, whenever you created them, to indent them. You also, once they're built, these little 3 buttons, 3 little snowman, I believe it's referred to as, I think that's an official term, the cute snowman term over here, you can either decrease that indent or you can increase that indent. So I got rid of it right here and I slid it over to the left. we decided to increase it so that you could visually see they lined up. So all of our pages, okay, this is what I'm going to do first. This is my activity or my assignment. So we decided to kind of tier them again, like an outline would be organized that, yep, this is the lesson. Here's the thing I do. Here's the next lesson. Here's the thing I do. And all of that is within Bend 1. So those are just some organizational little ways that you can keep it clean for kids. So again, it doesn't just end up to be this huge, huge string. I do love that they give you cute little icons depending on what it is. That does help navigate. Another option is to throw an emoji in there, right? Like just the more visual cues that you can give kids to find things. So if you notice, I went over here and this is just, I found an emoji site, copyandpasteemoji.com. And I'm going to use this cute little anchor here. I'm going to control click on it. It gives me the option to copy it. I'm going to go back into my course and just for fun, I'm going to make all of their anchor charts. I've already done it to a number of them, but over here on the right, again, my little snowman menu, I have the ability to edit this. I'm just going to paste Command letter V, a little anchor in there. And again, I can mess with the indenting if I'd like to do that as well on that editing. When I update it, beautiful. All my anchor charts, again, just a visually for the kids, if they can see that maybe it's a specific, a specific color that you have, that all of the activities have this color in front of them. Maybe every time it's something you want them to do, it always has this emoji next to it. Just again, visually helps them so that they know what it is that they are looking for. Now, in terms of organizing your different modules, we have organized this module by lesson. So all of this whole big long module is all 5th grade and it is all one writing unit. We decided to organize it like that for a number of different reasons. In terms of elementary, we've done them by subjects. So you have a math module, a science or health module, a social studies module to begin with, to keep things organized for kids. They know which one to hop into depending on which subject area. We did that because they are linked to the homepage. So you would click on the math page and you'd be able to go directly to the math page. Now, I do know that some people are organizing differently and they're organizing perhaps by the week, right? So you could have week of, what is it? November 2nd, right? Week of November 2nd. And here are all the activities and all of the assignments and pages that you're going to need to have access to this week. And I know during CDL, a number of teachers are organizing it that way. So kids have all the resources they need for that week. We've talked to a few elementary teachers. That's perfectly fine to do. We did have one teacher last spring who did it that way. She organized everything by week. And then at the end of CDL, she was really hoping to curate, to pull all of those writing lessons and put them together like for next year, right? So into a module. And she had to go back and pull those out page by page by page. And from all of her weeks, I had to go grab that writing lesson and that writing lesson and that writing lesson. And she was really wishing that she had set it up like this, so everything was organized in one module. Kids can get a schedule in other ways. You can give them an agenda of what things are to come. But for her, that was a big deal breaker, that she didn't have them organized into beautiful units, because you can move the entire module as a big unit, but not as easily when they're broken into different pages if she wanted to pull it back together, if that makes sense. So she wanted the ability to move the entire unit.
All right. So as I was kind of saying previously, depending on what kind of teacher you are, teacher A might be the person I was kind of referencing, where you're building the module ahead of time. You've maybe looked at the target itself and you've thought about, I'm going to build this component and then this component and this component, and you're building it out as blank shells. Like when I click on this, there's nothing there. But, I've thought about, how I'm going to get them to the end piece. And I know that I'm going to need this, 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 and this, and that's how I'm going to end up building it. The other person might potentially be building, Sunday night, and you're building this assignment, this assignment, this assignment. And then after you've got that content ready to go, it could be Wednesday, you maybe go back into the module and add them at that time. And that is totally plausible. When you hit the plus sign in the module section, you click assignment. And if you do in fact have an assignment that you made on Sunday night, it would show up here. So you can add it into the module at that point. So it just depends on what makes sense for you logistically as you're building and planning a unit, whether you build those empty blank shells or if you're building kind of on the fly as your students need. But again, when you build within a module, what it does is it allows, from a student's perspective, if I click on here, you'll notice that I now have this like next button. So from a kid's perspective, I start at the top and then I can just keep clicking this next button to move through all of the content within that module. So you get these forward and back buttons that are built into the module itself. A lot of times I can go back to the example that Carrie was just showing, that writing example. I like to use, for navigation purposes, I like to add in an image button. So go back into that module. Sorry. So she was showing you those anchor charts. So because this is built within the module itself, you'll see that you get these previous and next buttons, so forward and back buttons. But I also like to put in like a home button just so that kids can easily navigate. Now, technically they could go back up here and hit home, but in actuality, that home button here takes them back to like your main home page, whereas this button takes them back to the unit homepage. So there are some pieces that you can build into Canvas for navigation to help your students with moving forward throughout each unit. So that's another piece that comes when you're building within modules. Kind of go back. Okay. And then we briefly talked about the publishing of modules. So again, I know that when I was first learning Canvas, I was hitting walls left, right, and center as I was building within modules, because I would go into a student view and try and access different links, and some of the links were working and some of them weren't. And oftentimes it would come back to what is published. So just again, remember that you can go in, and when you hit publish on a module, it will automatically publish everything within the module. But if you're looking at a module like this one we were showing you before, and you're like, oh my gosh, that is a huge module and I don't want my kids to have that right away, you can individually go over and unpublish as needed, and then publish them so that the kids see the unit build.
Any questions about modules that we can answer for you? And because we only have a few friends live here with us, you're welcome to just unmute yourself and ask.
So I've got a quick question, a list of things actually. So something I'm wondering about, I think I know the answer to this, but you know, my 6th grade PLC and I started off the year with the idea that the weeks would be the way to go. You know, here's what you're doing this week each day. And now as we're getting deeper into the year, we're realizing, like you've said, oh, okay, great. Now you start to try to navigate and things start going wonky. So is there a way that you can manipulate the flow or direction in a module to keep people like from jumping? Like, here's what happens. Like we have a module right now, it's identity unit, right? And they get to the end of that module, they click, there's an arrow and it takes them to an unrelated day in whatever week in another module now. So is that just something you just have to deal with now at this point because you created it that way?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay.
Once
That's what
you're
I
building,
figured.
yeah, once you're building in modules, it will continue to have the students move linearly, which includes moving from that module they just completed to the next module in the line. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so the only way you could avoid that would be to like unpublish the other module.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I figured.
I mean, again, when we start talking a little bit more about like prerequisites and rules, there potentially could be ways for you to, you know, like lock down, you know, the unit itself so that it's not accessed until, but again, that's a more advanced.
That's a level 3,
Yeah.
and lesson learned about using weeks instead of like a unit, because I guess that's the thing is you would finish whatever section, module, whatever is that the way you do it then? Is you just like unpublish it then? So then now it's no longer available and kids don't go like flowing into, wait a minute, I was just doing a reading signpost and now I went to a, you know, conversation on a book or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where we've been asked quite often, like, why are we using Canvas instead of Google Classroom? And what we've been trying to get people to understand is that, like, in this realm of virtual learning, you've probably seen, you have so much content, like these modules and these units and everything. You're seeing, like, your screen is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and harder for people to navigate. And so, yeah, there are ways that you're going to have to kind of teach students, maybe even including a stop page. This is the end of this unit. You've gone too far.
That's a good idea.
You know,
yeah, that's a good idea.
Like a header at the end. This is the
big
end
old
of
page.
This.
I would just do a page with like a stop sign or something. Stop. This is the end of the unit. You've gone too far.
Add a fun GIF or Bitmoji.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And then you just duplicate the same page over and over again. You can just keep duplicate it and move it to another place. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Lesson learned on that. It made sense at first. Okay, you know, like a parent would go, okay, what are they supposed to do this week? Here's the, like, this week, but now it's like it's getting messy. So when you unpublish, then, like, you know, you had a whole week or two of things. You know, I'm thinking about something like a month ago now at this point. So I unpublish, it disappears from their Canvas page, right? It's just like gone. But then, of course, if they go to grades or whatever, they would see that assignment that they did way back when and all that. Okay. Because that was a concern my team had, was like, okay, well, I want parents to see what we've been working on.
Yeah.
And if we unpublish it, then it's going to look like we've just been sitting around doing nothing for the last month.
They'll still see all the assignments and everything. They just won't be able to actually dig into those from the module view.
But then of course they could still click on that assignment they turned in, look at the feedback, look at the rubric, you know, deal with something if they needed to there. They just wouldn't be able to get to the content that was in the page in the module. Okay, all right, that makes sense. Don't want to monopolize the conversation here, so I'll hand off to somebody else who wants to ask a question.
I wanted to ask if you guys, if there's any like programs or document files or anything you run into in Canvas when developing modules that like just doesn't work. There's things that don't blend together, or that Canvas just doesn't like, or that's something that doesn't like operating with Canvas. Things we should like avoid or find ways to work around.
Scratch.
Okay.
I mean, it works, but it's not the issue. One issue you might potentially run into is when you put a website link in a module, you know, add by URL in a module. Some websites, it's called iframing. Some websites are happy. It'll show up in Canvas. It shows up in the module beautifully. But some, for example, the Canvas guides don't show up in the modules. They don't allow iframe, which is really whack to me. And so YouTube videos are great. You could put in a YouTube video as a URL in a module, and the YouTube video is there. Same rule applies. It won't have the next button. It won't have the commercials. It's awesome. But just to be aware that sometimes when you put a website in, sometimes that website won't float and live in Canvas. The students have to click on the link and go to it. So that's just one of the limitations to a module that you'll notice. And that just, there's no rule. It's just some websites allow for iframing and some don't. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think modules, you know, the organizational structure of modules, I think is just helpful, could potentially be very helpful.
Yeah, I'm already looking at it. This is the first time I've dug this far in, but I'm liking it so far.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not personally a huge fan of an external URL necessarily in a module. I know a lot of teachers do that. I would prefer what Chris was kind of talking about with the iframe code, just simply because I would rather have instructions and information and actual like directions for students ahead of giving them like access to a website or something. So, but that's like more of a personal preference. I don't know if that makes sense.
And sometimes it's just a resource like, hey, here's a resource versus here's my instructions for you when you get to this resource. And I agree. I think that's like, and that's something like, as somebody you're a designer, right? You're designing your lesson for students. And so you you look at those things and you go, oh, I could do it this way instead. And that's where things get, I love the ability of Canvas, but at the same time, you're like, wait a second, should this be a page or just a link? Well, you could do both. Well, which one's better? Well, and a lot of times it comes down to, I always ask myself the same questions. What is it that my students are going to be doing with this thing? How are they engaging with this thing? And so that kind of help me think the process of how I'm actually applying that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's both a blessing and a curse when you look at Canvas, like how much personalization that you can really have with it, as opposed to other LMSs. And I think that's one of the reasons Canvas has been so widely adopted by so many different people, is because you really can make it fit the needs for your personal teaching style as well as what the kids might need. But then that also means that the learning curve is pretty steep, and you really do have to have, you know, a sense of understanding in terms of, like, you know, designing curriculum in a virtual space and really thinking of it forwards and backwards. How are the kids accessing it? How is it engaging them? You know, I can't stress that enough. I know that we've done several different series and pieces of PD on virtual lesson design. But I think, you know, I mean, looking at a Canvas assignment and just typing it out in 12-point font, black type font, and saying, here you go, here's what you do, is what I would hope nobody does. and it comes back to that external tool that I was talking about too. Like we have to take a little bit of time on what we're building and doing for kids.
Okay. These are good questions. I love them. They're awesome. They're fantastic questions. I'm going to pull up another resource that I just accessed the other day.
Rich, did you have another question?
Not concerning modules, so I'm just holding that.
Oh, it could be, yeah. We have time.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, if we've hit the wall on module content, then we can stop the recording and just open it up to everyone.